was not at that meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve the October 17 meeting minutes as presented.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We don't have a superintendent's report right now, and our student rep, I believe, is at National Honor Society induction. So our new business is, the first order of business is the superintendent's award recipient. So, I'll let
It's
you-
my pleasure to
Yep.
take it from here. This year's recipient of the Superintendent's Award is Elizabeth Walsh. Libby's academic accomplishments include Academic Excellence Awards in American History, Honors Physics, Honors Pre-Calculus, Honors Spanish 4, Honors Anatomy, Physiology, Honors Algebra 2, Health, Honors Geometry, Honors World History, and Honors Biology. She also received the award for the U.S. History 1 research paper. Libby has several athletic accomplishments. She received Honorable Mention All-Star for lacrosse and Most Valuable Player awards in lacrosse and field hockey. She received the Rising Star Award and Team Player and Endurance Award in field hockey. She is the senior captain of the varsity field hockey team and was sophomore captain for the junior varsity basketball team. In addition to all these accomplishments, Libby participated in service learning trip to Guatemala. She also works part-time as a busser at the Asian Imperial Restaurant, as well as camp counselor and basketball referee. Her favorite quote is from Samuel Beckett: "Ever tried, ever failed? No matter, try again, fail better." I think that's pretty impressive. So I'll invite you up.
Can we get pictures? Yeah.
Oh, with the parents, yeah. and we have the ledger here to take a picture too.
Pretty impressive.
You there as well?
Oh, no, I don't.
Handing it to her? Photo op. And I thought I had a busy high school.
Oh, boy.
You don't have to stay.
Congratulations.
Yes, congrats, Libby.
I don't know how she fits all that in. I really don't.
Yeah, I was just remarking, I thought I had a busy high school career.
Libby's a hard, dedicated student.
Yes, she
Hardworking.
is.
She is.
Absolutely.
She is a great role model that we have in Lunenburg High School, and it's going to be so sad to see her graduate in June. I know. I know, it's going to be big bucks. Yeah. So good luck, Libby. Thanks for coming. But you don't have to sit through our whole workshop. But you can if you want to, but it doesn't.
I'm betting she's got some homework to do, just to...
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. So the next order of business is the new program at the primary school. You want to tell us about quick?
So this is something that's really come up in the last really 24 hours. We've seen an increase in the number of students who are displaying behaviors connected to social emotional issues, and we've been working hard to support them in an inclusive setting, in a regular gen ed classroom setting, but many of them are still having difficulty. And at this point, we really feel we need to initiate a new program that would put them in a smaller setting with specialized instruction. once students would be moved into this program, doesn't mean that they would necessarily remain there for the duration of the year. If they were able to master a skill set that would allow them to be successful in an inclusion setting, we would be moving them back to a full classroom setting. We're not looking at this strictly as a program to support special education students, because there are some students who are not currently receiving special education services, but really could benefit from this sort of direct instruction in the skill set that they're lagging. In order to initiate this new program, we would need to hire a teacher and a paraprofessional. We're working to determine a location in the primary school, but we really need your approval to move forward, because we would have to post the position, interview, and hire, and that takes some time, and the students are in need now. So the faster we can move the process along, the better for all students concerned.
How many students do you think this is going to affect at this time?
At this point, we're thinking potentially 7, which is the right number for a small group classroom. You wouldn't want the classroom really to exceed 10. Many of those students are special education students already on an IEP, so in order to move them into this program model, we would have to hold team meetings, and the team would have to make the recommendation for the change in placement for them. So it is going to take several weeks for it all to come together, because there are multiple processes that have to happen to get the program up and running.
And during that several weeks, there's little indication right now that any of these potential students would be graduated out of that behavioral issue?
Honestly, it's going to take time to tell how many of these students have potential to graduate from a temporary stay in a program like this. Right. How temporary, I don't know. Based on the students that have been identified as needing a service like this one, we're talking about some kindergarten students and some first grade students. This would be a multi-age classroom, similar to the Achieve classroom that we have currently, that services our students with autism.
Is there a safety issue?
Yes. The behaviors that the students are exhibiting, some of the students, not all of them, there have been issues where other students have been on the receiving end of some lack of ability on the part of the student to regulate themselves and respond in an appropriate way. So for the benefit of all the children, these children really do need more extensive supports.
Okay, so it's your recommendation that we approve this so that you can post the
Yes.
for the hiring?
Yep.
Okay,
Any
other questions?
any estimate on the budget impact?
So hiring a teacher, naturally, we would be working within the guidelines of the salary schedule and the contract. So it really is going to be dependent on the candidate that we believe would be the most successful candidate, the number of years' experience, what their education is, master's degree, beyond master's degree, and such. Of course, it would be prorated because it's not a full year. But I'm hopeful that if we can post and start interviewing, that prior to the November 28th meeting that we have, hopefully we'll have a candidate that we're looking to recommend hiring. And at that point, I'll be able to give you more information as to the actual cost and where that cost will be coming from.
Okay.
But we were going to be giving you, for lack of a better term, a quarterly update on where we are with the budget anyway at that meeting.
Okay, sure. So I need a motion.
I'll move to proceed with the posting and further evaluation at this time.
Thank you.
Any second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, the end of the year report review. We all had that in our Google Docs. Did anyone have any questions in regards to it? It's been signed off by the town accountant and our business manager and the superintendent already.
I did not.
I didn't have any,
No?
Either.
nothing jumped out at me. no.
Nothing? Okay.
No, it looked good.
So I just need a motion that says I can sign it.
Oh, I will move that we will ask Heather to sign off on the end-of-the-year financial report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So now I can sign it. Okay. And then donations.
So we have 2 donations for your consideration for acceptance this evening. Both donations come in the form of school supplies. We received a donation from Dr. Giannano's dental office. Many of the patients who have come in and out of the office have contributed to collection of school supplies. The second donation came from Walmart.
Oh, they donate school supplies?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. And where did they go?
They'll be distributed
Okay.
equally, just as the donations that came in from Dr. Giano's office.
So we will accept them with gratitude?
I will move that we accept these donations with gratitude.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now on to old business. Do we have any old business now? We have a public comment section. Do we have any comments from the public?
Yes.
Step up and tell us your name and your address, Mr. Rogers. You can take right here.
Thanks.
Take my mic too.
My name is Dave Rogers. I live at 82 Highland Street. I'm here this evening to follow up with a meeting that I had with you folks in open session where I spoke with regard to monies that were identified by me in the salary account. Specifically, I went back and figured out the salaries for those that retired and those that resigned, and compared them with the salaries that we ended up paying for the people that took their place. And there was a difference of approximately $143,000. The question I raised at that time was what would happen to that money, because it's my understanding that everything has been taken care of. All of the positions have been filled, and there is essentially $143,000 over that's available.
Do we have an update on that? That figure?
That particular question specifically has been reviewed by Mr. Cassidy. He does have a report that will be presented at the next meeting.
Okay. Could we have some sort of a thumbnail sketch of what the basis of that is? Is Mr. Cassidy here?
Right behind you. Yes, Mr. Cassidy is here. But do you have that information on hand?
So I did receive the information.
Sorry for my back.
Okay, that's okay. We were prepared to give a budget update at this meeting, but with the joint meeting, we didn't want to take up a lot of time. I did go through your numbers. Preliminary numbers are a little bit high on your end. And I'll say that because at the, I want to remind the committee, the school committee, that at the town meeting, we voted on the budget and people at that meeting. And then in June, you also modified that budget. So some of those, some of the people that you had identified in those accounts, sir?
Yes, I'm listening to
Oh,
you.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't hear you, sorry.
Dave
Oh, okay.
Rogers.
Mr. Rogers, that those some of those line items were adjusted because we knew that they were leaving at the time. So between the town budget, the town meeting, and the end of June, we were able to adjust some of the accounts because the people that you did identify did leave, but we were able to adjust the accounts at that point.
What does that mean, sir, adjust the accounts? I don't understand.
So if we knew a particular person was leaving, a retiree
Yeah,
was leaving,
sure.
that we adjusted the account lower. For example, I think you had the primary principal's
This is Blake.
salary
Yep.
was 115. And it may have been at the town meeting, but ultimately, the school committee approved the line item budget of 95,000 for that position. So we made adjustments to some of those people.
Okay.
And I'll identify those
At our next meeting.
as part of the annual, the quarterly update and the proposed transfers.
Okay, can you give us an indication what the net dollar amount is that was the difference between the retirees and the folks that we hired and the net dollar amount difference?
I will, yes.
You haven't got that number now?
No,
Because,
no. We're not
Who should I
prepared.
be talking to
No,
here?
he didn't have it on our agenda, so he was prepared for our next meeting. So he has all, we're here for a workshop with the selectmen.
This is public comment.
I know.
Okay, and this is something that I reviewed with this board, and I was told by Mr. Levesque that he would have to look into it and get back to me at that time. You said when I gave the documents out, this is on TV, so you can check it out, and here I am, some 3 or 4 weeks later.
Again, we're going to, at our next meeting when we're doing our work, that's not involved with the selectmen. Mr. Cassidy.
I can address that request in the report.
Well, I would hope so.
I do have it. I mean,
Okay.
I do have
It is ready, we know that,
Ready,
right,
yeah.
and it will be addressed at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I don't have that information.
Okay, but Mr. Cassidy does.
Yes.
Anyway, my point is very straightforward and right to the point, okay? That is that $100,000+ is a lot of money. It is my hope that that money will be returned the same way that it came in, to the folks in the form of a general fund, like we do at the end of the year. If there's money left over, it goes into the general fund. Because obviously, as I heard last evening at the selectmen's meetings, there's not that it's changed, but there's always trepidations about money. And this, to me, is a perfect example of how we can put money back in to the general fund.
Okay.
So I would look for the school committee's agreement with that, and I would look for them to work vigorously to make sure that that happens so that we can continue on, because money is getting tighter and tighter. I just saw it as an opportunity, and I would hope that it would be returned.
And once we'll be able to, next meeting is the 28th? Correct. So that will be at the middle high school, the collaborative room.
Okay?
Okay. 28th. So Mr. Cassidy will present all the information in regards to what you brought up at the last meeting.
Okay, in addition to other,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
okay.
Other.
I'll look forward to the meeting on the 28th. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now on to the joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen.
I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order and to thank the school committee for having us here this evening. Our request to join you grew out of our goal-setting process and an attempt for us to understand the relationships between our board and other boards, particularly other elected boards that by charter report to the people and not to us, and to have an opportunity, especially with the arrival of a new superintendent, to start with a clean slate and just see where we intersect, if we intersect in any place, and where we can help each other to make both of our contributions to the town better. So not that we have an expectation of a result for this evening, but we did put together kind of a wish list that we published as our agenda. And we had hoped that we could ask you for yours as well and spend some time just going through items where we believe we could provide assistance to the town in cooperation with the
Right.
school committee, where we could actually help the school committee in their mission and vice versa. And that's our total objective. Hopefully that's similar to what you folks have in mind.
Yep. So, so their topics for discussion, the future of Turkey Hill, and that actually came up at Capital Planning yesterday. We were trying to figure out what our projected costs were, the long-term plan for Turkey Hill. Mr. Londa was there, and he presented the school committee's capital plan with Dr. Burnham as well. So do we want Mr. Londa to come up and have a word in regards to Turkey Hill? Here's my mic.
Good evening, John Londa, Director of Facilities. So for Turkey Hill, the capital plan we provide is a 10-year plan. It outlines costs from FY20 through FY25. We're not really projecting any costs out beyond that at this point. The salient parts of the capital plan includes asbestos abatement. We have been in 4 years worth of projects at asbestos abatement, trying to remove spray-on fireproofing that is above the ceiling in the school, as well as floor tiles and the associated glues that hold those tiles down. And for the other significant item on here occurs, we are having in FY24, we're showing $500,000 in that year, and in some ways that is a placeholder. That $500,000 is earmarked as 50% of the cost of a potential MSBA project to re-roof Turkey Hill. And I think that's a big number. It's also making that decision to whether to re-roof at that time or not. It does impact future work with the MSBA for Turkey Hill. If we do go into that project, that would delay us 10 years before we could come back to them for another project for the school. So that'll be a decision that will need to be made, to look at the decision, well, do we invest in the roof? Not necessarily having firmly convinced ourselves where we are with respect to whether Turkey Hill is a renovation or a replacement. But that FY24 is there because we, started re-roofing Turkey Hill back in 1996, completed in 1998 through 3 projects. So the roof is getting to the point where, it will become a concern. A different option besides replacing the roof would be to continue to focus on maintaining the roof with the idea that we moved into some other route forward with the building, that being either a renovation or a replacement. The total cost of what we're currently reflecting in the capital plan for Turkey Hill is about $955,000. And like I said, a good $500,000 of it represents this idea that, conceivably we could be doing roof work on Turkey Hill in FY24.
Any questions?
If you do the work on Turkey Hill, the roof, does that mean you couldn't do any other projects with MSBA on any schools in town? Do they designate money by school or by town?
You could do a project with the MSBA on a different school. In fact, we are reflecting in FY '26 to try to do another project with the MSBA for Lunenburg Primary School with an upgrade to the boiler systems to go from our original boilers there to gas condensing boilers. So we could do that, but we would not be able to come back for Turkey Hill for 10 more years.
I have a question about the asbestos abatement. By doing that, does that improve what the cost would be for demolition as well? Because you're basically removing the hazardous material. Like, does it sort of save money either way?
So the reason why we're tackling that one is because the spray-on is considered a friable material, in other words, easily crumbly, and so we're concerned about that. And it's above the ceiling, but because it's above the ceiling and the ceiling is 49 years old, we can't get above the ceiling until we remove it. Now we've been at this for a number of years. There's a large section now that has been cleared. We still have 162,000 that we proposed for FY '20 to do a second stairwell and the second floor hallway, and listen, that still doesn't really finish us out. So we have one final year in FY '21 to deal with spray-on in room 113 and 114. I think this is good work to do because, one, it resolves issues with asbestos in the building. It allows us access above the ceiling, so we could, if we have an issue with plumbing, electrical, or pneumatic controls, we're able to go above the ceilings and work on it. And then we know it's work that would be required to be done if you renovate it or if you demolish it. So I think it's a prudent way to go, and it gives us flexibility on being able to take care of the building until such time as we do a renovation or a replacement.
And one of the added benefits that you mentioned in the past was you're also replacing the ceiling and the flooring and kind of making the space look newer and brighter and cleaner at the same time.
This is, so we're modernizing, not really upgrading. We're taking up vinyl tile, we're putting down vinyl tile. We're just replacing a drop ceiling for drop ceiling. We are modernizing the lighting, not necessarily through that project, but through other projects such as the Green Communities grants or through the school budget. And if anybody that gets a chance to get over to Turkey Hill Elementary School, the difference between what the first floor hallway looks like and the second floor hallway is pretty dramatic. So you have a big boost in appearance for the areas that have been touched.
So after these two phases, then the asbestos, is that considered almost 100% remediated? Or
so at that point, all of the spray-on will have been abated. There will still be floor tile in other sections of the building, specifically the music room, the cafeteria, and then the hallway between the cafeteria and the kitchen. Those will be the big areas. There will still be a lot of classrooms on the second floor that will still have the original ceilings, but don't have spray-on above it, and will still have vinyl asbestos tile on the floor. So we're not 100% complete. We've dealt with the most likely to be damaged, the friable material. And conceivably we could come back in and continue to do work to improve ceilings. Those are substantially less costly to do that if we're not having to deal with the asbestos.
So the second floor doesn't have asbestos in the ceilings?
It does in the hallway, but not in the classroom side. So it's on one side of the beam, not on the other. So when we finish out the hallway, we should be in good shape to be able to continue, as need be, to maybe do some ceilings as funds are available. But there won't be that asbestos concern in the classrooms.
So it's much cheaper to replace the ceilings?
Yeah, if you're just doing the ceilings, that's very reasonable compared to, okay, well, we a huge chunk of this is just dealing with the asbestos.
Thank you.
So I guess to piggyback on that, I just want to know, obviously the 2024 is when we've slated to start talking about making a roof decision. When, and maybe you guys haven't thought about this at all, but when do you all foresee starting a conversation about renovation or replacement of that facility?
I would think that it would be at least a year or two prior, because we're going to have to express intent for a project with MSBA.
So it'd be
2022.
coming up.
Within 3 years, probably.
So if I may, I've been thinking about these buildings for a long time. And with Turkey Hill, it stands out as basically our last old school. I mean, it
Yeah.
really, I mean, that's the last one. And I mean, even when we fix it up, you go down those hallways that are the connectors, or the front where the heat is. And I mean, it's definitely an old school. And actually, it's an amazing school in terms of its spirit. And I have 3 kids in that building right now. And it's a happy place, and it's a well-run place. And Halloween, the 7 Dwarfs and Snow White were out front waving everybody in. And, so I mean, I feel concerned about the building, but I mean, the school's absolutely wonderful. When I start thinking about it being the oldest school, I associate it with also connecting it to what our future space needs. I look at the middle high school from experience, because I've subbed in there, and you can feel that there is a denseness now at sometimes, like in the cafeteria, that 10 years from now, in my mind, the solution might be maybe 6th grade comes out, maybe 6th and 7th comes out, and maybe the easiest way to manage the space in that building is to pull someone out. Well, where does 6 and 7 go? What do we do with this old building? I feel like the potential for a rebuild solves the problem of both this old school and the ability to find a place to put everybody. And that would be in this last new building, I would like to think of it as, or last for a while. So that's, with Turkey Hill, I really feel like the opportunity to rebuild gives us an opportunity to make space, and that can really mean more than just 3 through 5 moves into a new building. We can shift in a way that I think can help solve maybe a lot of problems at once.
Exactly, but we have another option, even with renovation of the building, to potentially do an addition to the existing building, Turkey Hill.
Yeah, so Turkey Hill, when it was constructed, there was a view towards future expansion. So we do have some capability to expand, add classrooms to the building. The core facilities are pretty much probably as big as they can be, without really doing something pretty dramatic. But the classroom wing at one end of the building, near the track, had all of the utilities brought to the end and stubbed out, and so that's the potential expansion. So for every 30 feet more we add to the classroom wing, we can add 4 more classrooms. That's somewhat limited, and I think realistically you probably cannot do more than 60 feet. So you could see where we had 8 classrooms. So the core facilities, you're kind of limited there, but you could add additional classrooms if you needed to.
Right, there's a lot of strained things in that building, like the stairwell out of the girls' locker room, certainly not ADA compliant to have a changing room and that was a long, narrow staircase unless I altered it in my mind. But there's all these other things when you look at an older building, technology and everything, and in the past, the town has opted to go the route of using an opportunity to make a new space that's more compliant and no, hazardous materials and whatnot. And so I think when we talk about replace or renovate, there's just so many things to look at, and I think it should be a really big and open discussion because it's going to be here so soon. And then it's like the last piece of the puzzle.
And it did take, 10 years for the middle high school to get off the ground?
Yeah,
So-
we're in that range.
Well, yeah, and it should take us another 10 years. We were asking the taxpayers a lot of money.
It would be, yes.
So we really need to take our time and
Some debts
process
will be expiring,
this.
like the public safety building and the library. So in this time while we plan, some debts will be expiring on other projects. So it'll
Right.
lessen the impact of putting a new project on the town as the time passes.
I think too, that was already thought in the middle high school, when that began to come due. Folks had been told within whatever it was, 18 to 24 months, those would be expiring. So I think that's
Of the new middle high school would be less.
yes, that we've already had that conversation, so. as-
So we've already
so-
gotten credit
The
for that.
scary
Yes,
thing is-
yeah, that's all, that credit's on the books.
Double dip.
I think the scary
Right,
thing is
right.
there's a
We
huge
can't.
cost burden either path. There's either
Oh.
a very expensive renovation or replacement, so we can't avoid the impact of a pending doom in terms of a large project.
No, but the school committee,
We
when you were with
charged-
us, when you were at that meeting with us, when Dr. Berthium said,
10 years.
we cannot come back and ask for anything.
For at least 10
For a
years.
while. So that was where some of these projects were born in that time, saying, how are we going to expand that life, those extra 10 years before we start to talk about, talking to the MSBA regarding intent, that we were looking out that far, and that's, that was definitely what you gave us at that time in terms of vision around that, how to extend that
That's
life.
part of the reason people were supportive. They
Yes.
said, okay, they understand
Yeah.
that we can only pay so much, so we've got 10 years. And I think that made people more willing to sign on for the middle high school, because it took a lot.
Oh, yeah.
To sign on, took many tries. And so I think in good faith, you can't go, and you can't go back.
No, and we're doing what obviously has to be done in terms of upkeep for that building.
The only thing that comes up is the roof replacement. So then at that time, we would have to decide.
Then decisions you have to.
That's when we would have to decide. Do we want to invest in the roof, or do we want to hold off and just
patch it.
Right.
Patch it.
until we decide where we're going?
Just need some 5-gallon buckets for the drips.
Yeah.
To go back to the, how can we help each other?
Yeah.
Obviously, this is an activity that becomes the school committee's job to do whatever assessment of
Right.
demographics, aging, bubbles.
Bubbles, growth,
all
yes.
that kind of stuff. And at some point, it kind of coordinates with capital planning for
Yes.
short-term repairs versus long-term, et cetera. What, if anything, and we don't have to answer this tonight, but what role can the town or the Board of Selectmen or any other resource that the quote town has provide help with? I mean, one comes to mind is MRPC.
MRPC.
I mean, they have a lot of data about demographics, housing, people moving,
Right.
who's coming, who's going, those kinds of things. And is there any resources that the town can help provide as the school committee makes decisions like that? Clearly, I think that it should be front of mind as we budget.
Yes.
We know that we need big capital items like fire engines in these 3 years.
Yep.
Well, where's the roof fit?
Right,
vis-a-vis that?
right.
So I guess, not that we have to do it tonight, but one of the places where we could cooperate, I think, is to kind of coordinate the long-term planning efforts to make sure whatever planning we're responsible for doesn't interfere with yours, but also informs yours, just like yours informs ours.
Right.
Pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, we're a town, we're all together here.
Right.
Yeah, we should be
Exactly.
working together,
Exactly.
so. Okay, so we're not making any decisions, we're just talking about this.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so now we all know what's going on with Turkey Hill. You guys are all aware of where we stand with Turkey Hill, correct? Okay. We have no decisions made tonight. So, oh, do you want to go to the next one?
Sure.
Your conceptual? Yeah, that's you.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
in effect, we have a plan of record at the current time to move to the architectural, to take our architectural designs and to get to the next level of planning for reuse of TCP. And our plan right now has a couple of different options. The one that is probably most relevant in this case is, well, there's two. One is, to the extent that there are some school-related municipal office administrative activities, we want to make sure that's coordinated with the plan and that we're meeting your needs as we do our planning and et cetera. The other is that there's currently one version of the plan there's a piece of, I want to say a wing, but just for the sake of argument, there's some percentage of the total square foot that is unaccounted for, and there's a discussion being had, or there will be had, about whether the most effective use of that excess space is to demo it or to use it for a short-term revenue to cover some operating expenses while we get to the next step, or to build it into a longer-range plan. And things that have come up are things like the Boys and Girls Club and some other town uses, but also rental usage that may or may not have anything to do with the town, or may or may not have anything to do with what's actually going to be there. And then there's always looking at, is demolition, so that you don't have to light it and heat it, a better option. All right?
Right.
And, you know, what this bullet is designed to do is to start a discussion that says, how can we work together to make sure that your brainstorming and your ideas and your needs are here at the right time? I mean, I think everything is fair game now, at least to the extent of that third of the
That
plan.
section.
I mean, the whole
Okay.
plan is
Yeah.
up for how can we best utilize what the architect says. But right now, the most obvious one is there a real good use for the wing that's
The old fifth grade wing.
unassigned, right? I don't know if anybody else on our board has something to add on that one, but that was the kind of the general gist of that bullet.
Sure, I had a question for the architect, and when we looked at some of the things, sometimes there were classrooms associated with possible student use and a lot of crisscross with the general public in terms of these students might use this gymnasium. And I didn't know with the rules and having people be quarried and whatnot, how you could have a mixed use of a space where some of it was identified for students and some for the general public. And there wasn't necessarily a way to disconnect everything from each other, especially the use of the gym. I feel like had the most likelihood of having some sort of crossover, where if you had the Boys and Girls Club, but they wanted to use the gym, but there's general public use in these hallways and public restrooms, how that sharing happens. Like, for me, I like the Boys and Girls Club as it may need more space, but I like that it's a separate entity. As a mother, you look at the space and you see who's coming and going, and it's contained. 55,000 square feet of mixed use to me is a big mystery once you go through the door. And so as we put things on a blueprint map, I just start to think of how do I feel safe. And in general, I mean, most people know I'm against having the town hall move to this building, just based on school campus safety. That's what got me into town government, was after a little intruder incident. I started advocating for a school resource officer and surveillance cameras at Turkey Hill Elementary School and the primary school. And as a citizen,
Can we stay on topic?
this is why we're here.
I think you're diverting from the topic.
She's talking about the safety issue she has at the TCP, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And we're talking about TC Paxios,
Yes.
and I have 4 children that use the school system.
Right.
And the intruder incident for me, I started to ask myself, okay, I know how I take care of my children when they're with me, but when I go around in the morning, within 10 minutes, I put 4 children into the care of the town. And where we didn't have surveillance footage of the issue, that just triggered my need to say there's my favorite fables. There's one thing to say something should be done, and then there's another to do it. And I put tremendous amount of time and energy in meeting with the chief of police and everything. And now we have a school resource officer, and the surveillance cameras were put in with less than a year's time, and the school committee was so accommodating to that request. I worked with the mom of the little boy who was approached. So I'm a real, I really feel like a restrictive environment's a safer environment for a school. And there will be a little incident where somebody parked their car in the wrong spot and it made a little bit of a hoopla. And that's because we like to see things in a routine around the children. And I feel like bringing the traffic and the general public into this space where if you're around at 2:30 and the middle high school gets out and the kids disperse, they're heading to the library, maybe to the skate park, they cross through to the Boys and Girls Club, and there's children everywhere, and then making this town hall to me is a huge safety concern, and I also have concerns in general about traffic flow, because if you get into that school space at certain times of the day, it's at drop-off and pickup of middle high school, there's a lot of traffic using that space. And some people will say, well, there's lots of traffic for sporting events, X, Y, and Z. Typically, those type of things are not during the school day. The utilization of the town hall will always overlap with the school day. And so what does that bringing the general public right into this campus setting mean? And I think it's just a really, I'm very concerned. I think it would just be, served well as a demolition of that building. Open space. Tonight I was supposed to participate in a parent-child soccer game, and I didn't know how I was going to work it all out because it was from 5:30 to 6:30, but it was canceled because there was no field. So I think congesting that space has a negative impact, and so I just think it's fair for all the time and energy I've put in the topic to just say that the selectmen voted that this was their preferred option at a time when I wasn't a selectman, and I feel like I've put a lot of time in to earn the right to share that there's other opinions out there, and I've spent a tremendous amount of time with community advocacy, which is part of what earned me the ability to sit here and share this story. It's on behalf of a lot of people in town. Thank you.
I would only suggest that relative to the Boys and Girls Club, that they should be included in the discussion about how they treat security with their students at the club. So I don't want to speak for them, even though I am on the board. It's not my job to speak about that. Because I do see the kids walking to the corner store, the library, whatever. They're part of Cambridge Hall. Yeah, and traffic is certainly a concern, especially along Oak Avenue, where their cars are parked along the side of the road.
Right
and
next to
there's barely enough room to get around the cone in the middle of the road that says slow down and stop for pedestrians.
Yeah.
So that side is certainly a concern. My point was relative to the Boys and Girls Club. I don't think it's fair to talk about what their needs are without having somebody here representing them officially.
In the conceptual designs that you have, does that talk about the pattern of traffic, parking in that area? I assume that's all
Yes.
a part of the conceptual design that was done.
Yes, so the various options have abilities to put doors in that are key fobbed, so
Right,
they're
from
secure.
Sections of the school?
Yes.
Like,
With-
there's a big door area?
With different
Yeah.
entrances that can be used by different, so whether it be town offices or school district offices, or the ACE program was located in the back of the building. So that could be accessed only by those people attending that program. Yeah.
The school committee, the school system has a preference for the ACE program to be in a different space than the high school.
Correct.
Correct, yes, yes.
So this space works for the program.
Correct.
Thank you.
And it's their possibility, taking that, that wing where the gym and the kitchen are, to have their own entrance and wall off the area that would be municipal space, and wall off the area and they open up an entrance that's key fobbed for school-related or student activities on that side. That way you've got two separate entrances to that facility. I don't know if that's a possibility.
One of the options did have a door, after you enter the lobby, take a right down the hall, a door there, so they could access the gym.
Okay.
So that could be secured off from public.
I'm confused though, because the cafeteria was listed as the main meeting space for the town.
For
So then-
meetings, but it would be after school hours.
Like this kind of meeting?
Okay.
Collaboration.
Right, correct, yeah.
in the traffic flow in terms of the architect's design, they didn't change or address anything, and what I think is important is the road that goes from Mass Ave to Oak Ave is not a road, that's a school egress, and people from the more, Northfield Chase Road, their natural instinct will be to come through past the high school to get to TCP. Some may, I mean, it's just a possibility.
Do town and make the left.
And then, well,
Bumps are quite a bit.
Yeah, that's why I don't do it.
well, but in order to get to the space, there'll only be a few ways, and two of them are the egress to the middle high school, and the only other one is Memorial Drive. So if you didn't use the school egress, then you're inviting 100% of the traffic to go past the current Boys and Girls Club, the Eagle House that has a lot of coming and going and a lot of parkage usage on the side, and then also the library, maybe the skate park, and Kids Kingdom. So if you don't use the egress, which is 2 ports of entry, the only other port of entry is Memorial Drive, and there's a large impact there on a lot of activities that respond well to little traffic.
We're not here tonight to debate. We will do plenty of debating on this, but we're not here tonight to debate the plan of record. But I do have to say that I do not share your concern. I am a parent and a grandparent, and while I very much am aware of and very much supportive of checks and I just lost the acronym. It's not RICO, it's the thing we all have to do when we interact.
Corey.
I'm sorry. I'm totally in support.
Background checks.
Yeah, I'm totally in support and Corey checks and security cameras and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think we're protecting them from our citizens or our town employees. And I contend that the truth of the matter is the center of town has gravitated to the campus.
Yeah.
When you say it, the senior center's there, the library's there, the teen center's there. Memorial Drive will become a thoroughfare for a small town and will manage the traffic. In terms of egress to the building, we'll manage that. The gym, and I've been involved with the building reuse thing from the beginning, the gym and the CAF were not required, but they're there. Why tear them out? Let's figure out a way for the town, the community, the kids, whoever can use them, and then it becomes a scheduling or a door access issue. All right? My concern is if we're going to share space in any way, are there any different requirements for an academic institution that we should be aware of and build them in the front? I don't think they're showstoppers, but I know there are differences in terms of an academic environment versus a municipal office environment versus a town community center. And let's share that in the beginning so it doesn't become an issue at the end, is kind of where I'm at.
So you're still needing like space requirements from the administration basically on what?
No, I think we have a plan now. It's certainly up for revision. I think we have a plan for the municipal office space and the fact that the gym and the CAF are there and we want to maintain them. What we're saying is there's a whole wing of that building that isn't accounted for, and our current plan is to rent it out or demolish it. And before we do that, there are other opportunities.
We have something.
So is there a space for something relative to the school?
Is that the plan that Loxley had presented in recent years on what kind of space they needed there?
No.
The plan also includes central offices as well as IT and the ACE program.
Now, that's within the space that's not, we're not thinking about the wall.
Right, that's all accounted
That's all
for.
accounted
So
for. This
the question now is there anything else?
Is there something that we,
Would like also.
Well, that's why I wanted to know if our current superintendent had looked at the previous plans and he had made any
So I've
thoughts on
had a
that.
chance to meet with Heather, and we've had some conversation around the possible options for use of space. I would suggest that if there is available space, we may have a very good use for it. We're seeing an increase in the number of little ones in the community as they're coming in. This kindergarten class is the largest class size we've had in a number of years. 15 students registered just over the summer. When you spread that out over 5 or 6 classrooms, you're increasing the class size by 2 or 3. When you're talking about students who are 5 years old, an additional 2 or 3.
A handful.
They're taking up more of the available space in the room, plus, you're increasing that ratio of adults to students in the room. I would say that it would be prudent for us to look to use available space in the renovated TCP. We could actually probably use the space even without it being renovated, and relocate our pre-K classrooms. We have currently 2 integrated pre-K. We service those children with disabilities that have been identified early. And an integrated pre-K really needs to have a balance of special education students with their typical peers.
So is there a lottery system for the peers?
Yes.
So there's a potential that even the number of students who are identified and needing a program like this, we may actually have a need for a 3rd classroom at some point in the near future. We also have currently over at the primary building, the Early Learning Center, which is not an integrated pre-K classroom, but a service that's available to the community as a pre-K. So currently, 3 classrooms we're talking about pre-K.
Is that what's colloquial extended day?
Extended day is the same people run it.
Okay, okay.
It's the same people run it, but the extended day is before the school hours and
Okay.
after the school hours, and currently we have 2
Programs.
locations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? Once upon a time, there was 1 program with 1 location.
At TCP.
Right, right. There are issues with having 2 locations. You need to have 2 directors or coordinators at each site. You have to have somebody manning the door at each building because they have to buzz people in and out. So the director of the program would really like to be back at TCP for all of the programming. So the extended day before school, after school, and the pre-K class that she runs. So if she had during the school day, if she had 1 classroom for her pre-K, we could potentially occupy 3 others with an integrated pre-K, should we see this increased need, and we suspect that we will. Which is connected to some degree with what I had mentioned earlier, the need for a program. We are seeing more students with more need. So having the possibility of moving the pre-K and the extended day program, you could have at TCP an early childhood center. Currently, we also have a program, it's a play group, again, with really little ones.
Yes, babies.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
Zero to 5. Yeah, it's grades to 5.
Yep, we were there.
Exactly. They are already located there. So if we moved all of the pre-K services, it would essentially become our pre-K campus, if you will. And it would free up classroom space at the primary. So we had to add a 6th kindergarten class for this year. And I would argue with the surprise enrollment numbers, had we had any inkling that we would have that many more, we really would have been better off hiring a 7th kindergarten classroom and reducing the class size in all of the kindergarten classrooms. So you have to be prepared sometimes for that surprise enrollment. We currently have 6. Those 6 are going to move up to the 1st grade next year. We will have to have 6 1st grade classrooms next year because the class size is already at 24, 25 in these kindergarten classes. I anticipate that we are going to need at least 6 kindergarten classes.
Next year.
Next year. Perhaps we need to be prepared in the event that we may need to hire a 7th kindergarten classroom teacher. You know, we took a look, all kinds of projected numbers, and none of them match or align. The only thing we can actually count on is the enrollment. That's what we really have. I've asked that we do kindergarten registration this year in early February instead of in March, so that we can get a handle on numbers a little bit earlier. Now, that's not going to stop people from coming in and registering in March and April, May, and so on. But at least early, we'd have a good handle on how many classrooms are we talking about with the numbers that we know right now, right? And I think that we have to build into the budget a contingency that we may need to add if numbers increase.
Typically, when you do the enrollment in like March, how many more students do you get before school starts? Or is there not a typical number?
I don't know that there is a typical number.
I don't think
it's typical.
But we've taken a look at...
I think the summer might have been atypical.
Yes.
There was more enrollments over the summer.
And some of what we're seeing relative to a shifting demographic, there are more affidavits coming when students are registering. So typically when you register and you produce proof of residency, those folks who don't have a signed lease or have a purchase and sale agreement or can demonstrate they have a mortgage on a property, they have to complete a bunch of paperwork verifying that they're actually living with or on a property owned by a resident of Lunenburg. Those numbers have increased. Typically, we see roundabout 1920 annually in a circumstance like that. We've already hit that mark for this year, and we're only in November. So we have many, many more months to go. So that sort of change, you know, in the residents and the nature of housing, really, for folks coming into town. That coupled with the fact that, you know, you've got several larger apartment complexes in town, and I've got to look at numbers for that. Between Tri-Town Landing, Whalen Luxury Apartments, and Emerald Place, we have a total of 368 units. And those are long-term lease, a year lease. It's not, you know, month to month or something like that. So, but potentially there's a lot of turnover.
Right.
And we cannot accurately predict what percentage of that 368 units will have school-age children.
Right.
And at what grades they might have those children.
368
Yeah, I don't
currently
envy-
open places that are, does that project for the up and coming?
There are 368 units. Not all of those currently might be leased.
Okay.
I can't say that they're all full.
But there's 368 units available.
But there are 368 units in play,
Right.
right?
I don't envy that job. And then again, if there's any way we can connect MRPC or somebody to help with the demographics of housing. I happen to have raised my family in Pepperell. And while I was only there 10 years, but we built 3 schools, you know, for this big boom. And then after I left, now they're finding alternate uses for it because the bubble went in a different direction, you know. In fact, I think we lost Flack, our tenant, to North Middlesex because they're using one of their old schools. You know, as soon as they find space, as soon as they use all that space, they're going to need it again. So I don't envy that challenge.
And I'm not saying that I am anticipating that we're going to have, you know, a population explosion here in town. that warrants building additional schools. Yes, maybe a replacement for Turkey Hill. And yes, I think it would be prudent to build it a little bit larger than the capacity that it has right now. But I think that, you know, we have potential to move a grade to a different building as we need to have space. And I think having access to classrooms at TCP allows us some more flexibility in terms of being able to adjust for, you know, a larger class size. When we took a look at the birth rates that had, we asked for information for a 6-year period. 2016, there were 107 babies born to parents who were living in Lunenburg. That number is up. The numbers that we are seeing in the last, in a 6-year span, hover more around mid to upper 90s. And then you've got that 1 year, you know, where you've got to bump up over 100. So I don't think that class sizes are going to be decreasing, or the number of classes that we're going to need is going to be decreasing. If anything, I think that we'll see an increased need. Again, not to the extent that I feel we need to build an entire new building in addition to the buildings that we have, but, you know, enough space available that gives us flexibility to move and adjust as needed.
So one thought I had in how we could potentially work together is, a few years ago, when demographics seemed to shift, we had more, you know, apartments coming in, looking at verifying residency, because just knowing from talk around town, there were folks who were not living here and their kids were going to school here.
So we do that.
We do at 3 levels. So I'm wondering, is there a way in the future, particularly if we're finding our numbers increasing and we need to ensure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that everyone who is registered as a student in Lunenburg truly lives here, could we expand our verification? And could that be something that town could help us with? And I don't know, it's just something I'm throwing out there because it's a huge undertaking to do so at 3 grade levels. Currently, we do it at K, at 3, and at 6. So entering each, the transitioning into a new
building. And don't do it
building.
at 9 too, or no?
Well, each transition to a new building.
9.
At 9 as well. But at the high school, it is a little different in terms of when
Well, we have a
students move out.
policy.
Right.
So, but that could change. That's our policy.
It
To
could.
let
I'm just
students
saying,
who are
might we need to look at verification beyond those grades? I don't know.
Potentially, but I can tell you if we're going to now verify every year, it is a lot of man hours, and right now, we don't have the staffing to take that on. But if we felt that it was a necessary thing to do, we'd have to look at potentially adding some clerical support.
And that was my only thought when we're talking about collaboration. It may not even be a realistic thought, but it was just, you know, is there any clerical support we could utilize from the town? No may be the answer. It probably is, but it was just something that was on my mind as we're discussing all of this.
And Dr. Burnham, a lot of what you just talked about is another topic that was on my mind. And one thing I think about TCP, it was relinquished at the time from the school committee when it was no longer needed. And because I like to overthink and look at different options, one of the things I was going to ask, does it have a future as a school? So if we're going to invest the $10 million into it or so that it needs, is that our least expensive way to offer the town an option for overcrowding and whatnot? And it may be, because you might be looking at a $60 million, new school build, or for the next 20 years, we can work within these buildings we have. So that was just one thought I had. I guess just some nostalgia. It was a nice place to go to school. And I've studied these buildings more than people know, and it's almost probably a tragic use of my time. I had a very long meeting with Superintendent Calms about the building. at some point last year, and we talked about the building in terms of could it remain a school campus building, where a lot of the things we're talking about needing space are revenue generating items like the preschool. I've always had to go through those lotteries, and people get turned away, and those are paying customers. If you had a fourth preschool room and you were bringing in more and more and making your ratios of even stronger and stronger, you could at some point start to study what's the revenue generating potential of a very large preschool with extended day built in. So many people are looking for preschool with daycare, both revenue generating items. Now you could even consider extended day opening up outside of the town. Right now it's closed. I couldn't even sign up my daughter right now, but maybe a teacher who lives in Leominster wants the extended day. And these are all revenue generating items, coupled with using it as preschool, maybe even preschool, kindergarten, depending upon everything might need to shift with size. I'll mention, I have the 3 children at Turkey Hill, but I also have a kindergartner. So that topic is, I'll follow that giant bubble with my youngest child.
I don't think that our preschool program is revenue generating.
I'm saying it could be at some point, because there's a paying customer that's turned away when the lottery's closed.
They don't even pay for the teachers. Like, Mrs. Blaisdell came to us last year, do you guys remember? And she said that the parents who paid wouldn't even pay for the cost of the teacher in the classroom.
You would have to have enough parents. So private preschools that are all around generate revenue, Bonjour and whatnot. If you get to a point where there's enough paying customers, you could. I've certainly paid a lot of money to put 4 kids.
I understand that, but we have ours is integrated. So that's where the revenue, it's just not going to be a revenue.
The other thing that you wouldn't necessarily see at some of the private preschool settings is all the benefits that go with that employee. Many of the folks who work at
my mother worked there most of her career in the Lunenburg preschool, so I'm very familiar with the program.
But if you went to,
the private ones, my brother's fiance works at one, and it's not a great gig.
It's no benefits. If we were running something like that, maybe.
Sure. May I finish my stream of thoughts? So I didn't tie up the package before I finished. So one thing I'm just thinking, does this space have potential for the town as school space? And it does. You just said I had a long, extensive meeting with Superintendent Collins about sort of boys and girls. Could it be filled with all children? And we talked about all the ways between the ACE program, boys and girls, that it could be filled as an all-children space, where you take that confusion of overlapping uses out and you solve a lot of needs for space in that building. So I think there's potential to say, how much space does the school need? What do they need? And I get confused about moving the preschool there in terms of access to the nurse. That happens frequently when a kid spikes a fever. Do you have another nurse on? What's the cost of that?
We would have to.
And all the different services and what impact that would have on a teacher that might have to start traveling amongst the schools to provide services. So I think there's a lot of questions in moving just a small bit of school into a building versus trying to utilize it in a more extensive way. And I'll make it quick, but I just put down all my thoughts, so that's why we're here, right? I can't share my thoughts.
We have other topic items.
Yeah, we really, okay, I'll be super, super fast. And so the Vertex study studied the TC Passios building, and they cited approximately $2 million of immediate needs for the building, and immediate needs were cited as something that had completely failed and or had a safety concern. So when we talk about utilizing it soon, I would like to go back to the Vertex study that was done and identify what their $2 million were, and I remember them saying it's either immediate failure or safety concern. And one of my concerns would be things like it doesn't have surveillance cameras. What would the cost of putting surveillance cameras in? There was a really high amount of lead in the cafeteria water that was just cited recently. And that was probably something that was identified in the Vertex report. So before before my children entered into that space, I'd want to make sure we looked at what was on that list of $2 million of immediate repairs. And I think that was it. But I like to think in all different directions, not on behalf of myself, but on behalf of just thought. And I think it's on the school campus. It was a school. The school has needs, and that should be one thing we think about when we think about the building.
I'm just curious, what did Superintendent Combs say?
Because that's a very big building.
Right, what did she say? That it should have been we should have kept it? Because she's the one that recommended that we turn it back over to the town.
Well, we were talking about what is the potential, because extended day was there but was leaving, and that was going to be hard to... No, but...
It was her decision.
Well, because the building was failing, people were concerned about the front doors not locking anymore, so she needed to get people out because people were asking a lot of questions about safety and security. There was an incident in that building where, a parent it was the same day as the other one, and then they started having the person at the door, and the doors weren't always locking, and there weren't surveillance cameras, and so people were asking a lot of questions. And then there was the busing, which was super complicated for some folks to have people bust. So
Plus, it's expensive to have another whole
there's
school building.
reasons that it left, but we just talked about it's here on the campus. What could it provide to the school? It was thinking, it was just thinking forward.
Maybe we can go back to the original question.
I don't foresee us needing the entire building during the school day to meet any of even our expanding needs as an additional school building.
It would be very expensive to take care of that school for the school system.
But I mean, if we're talking about a handful of classrooms not having an assigned need as office space,
Before you demolish them.
I think that potentially...
And I think that at some point in this process, and I'm not asking the new superintendent or any of you at this point in time, but at some point in time, as we bring a much more complete plan to the town, we have to answer the question on a cost-benefit basis, does the plan we're proposing prohibit or get unbalanced by some future need for a school that we're going to hold the property in abeyance for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and we have to be able to put that to bed and say, yes, we've done the cost benefit and it's better to use it for this purpose, or it's better not to use it for that purpose and to hold it for a new school 20 years from now. We're going to have to answer that question when we go to town meeting someday.
And what the needs are.
Right. But I'm not asking anybody to do that this afternoon. It just doesn't make sense.
I identify with what you were saying in Pepperell, and they ended up with empty buildings. The school system that I worked in, they were just getting ready for an addition based on the population projections, and then they just, the economy went down, it just all went away, and they haven't added a classroom yet, and that was 15 years.
And you know what, life is what happens while you're planning. They're going to need that space again someday, and they probably will have demolished it or sold it or done something else with it.
But you can't just hang on to it indefinitely.
Well, that's the point. Right. Let's try to get at least through the bullets and come up with a game plan, all right?
Yep. The inclusion of a town representative to participate in union negotiations.
Now, that's kind of my thought, because when I looked at...
I have to say, I'm shocked that it was you, Phyllis.
When I looked at the last contract and the effect that it
You have handouts?
Yes, I do.
My goodness.
And I feel that the contract did not look enough at the longevity. It did not look enough at what was the goals of the school system. Could the school system afford this? And once the contract is in place, you've bought the farm. The town can't undo it, the school system can't undo it. Adding $1 million over the 3 years is a lot. And where the salary increases went at the end of the scale, I don't think that benefits the system. You know, you have less money to hire new teachers, young teachers, teachers with master's degrees, experienced teachers. You know, when a teacher's looking for a job, she doesn't go, what am I gonna make in year 25? I'm gonna take this job because I'm gonna make a lot of money in year 25. You know, you're looking for opportunities that give you a good salary coming in so that the superintendent can hire people coming in for a good salary. And this kind of a contract negotiation, I don't think serves the school system. And I think none of the people who negotiated it, I think, except for the teachers, are even or they're not on the school committee, they're not the superintendent. You know, I don't think they were taking the long view. So when I saw this contract, I said, the town, about 70% of the town's budget is spent by the schools. Buildings, you know, post-employment benefits, salaries, classrooms, everything. So the town has a huge stake in what happens with the schools, as why we're meeting tonight. And the salary, the teacher's contract is a big piece of that. And I think the school committee would benefit from having a town person involved.
And so
finance or the town manager.
So it doesn't have to be a selectman?
Oh, no, it probably wouldn't be,
Okay.
you know. You know, someone, a town voice, someone who has sort of a more global look at
The budget.
The budget. And, you know, the community we lived in before had a member of finance and maybe the town manager, I'm not sure. The community I worked in had finance committee people, you know. In Leominster, the mayor was the chairman of the school committee. He's a member, he's not the chair anymore, he's a member. But I think it's good to have another voice.
Just my education, who is the negotiating committee in the school world?
So it's the superintendent, 2 members of the school committee, and then LEA reps. And,
Well, that's the other side of the table, right? Okay.
So, and then it should be our HR guy. He was not here with us last year at the last
Okay.
negotiations. Was Mrs. Curley involved in the negotiations? None of us
I don't think
sitting
so.
here.
Right,
We're
right.
involved, okay?
And I would suggest
Mr. Cassidy.
Mr. Cassidy be
yes.
involved for both hats that he wears.
Right.
Both as an
HR,
HR director
yeah.
and as a finance
Right.
director.
So,
But I foresee working in this process in consultation with the town manager.
Yeah.
Right.
All the way through the process, actually.
yeah.
Not that she would have to be present at the negotiation.
No, right.
No,
Because that's very
Because I-
time
But the
consuming.
Because
consultation.
just kind of for the public, I mean, you know,
Right.
basically our contract negotiations with police and fire and
Right.
the unions that the town deals with are for the most part done by our outside labor council that we pay for and the town manager. And they bring, at certain points in the process, through executive session, they bring
Right.
parameters to the selectmen. All right, and then they go
Selectmen.
back and, you know,
Yeah,
do what they do.
selectmen set parameters.
Right.
Yeah, well,
To
right.
work within.
Right. And then-
But it starts with the budget, and you talk about 2 hats. The town manager for us wears the managing of the town and the kind of budget interface.
Right.
You know, and I feel very comfortable that we do, you're right, we set the parameter up front, but then you go and try to work within those parameters.
And when you think about it, this teacher's contract has a way bigger impact on the budget
Oh, sure.
than any of the others, so that it's more important for the town manager to be involved in the negotiations than it is in any of the other ones. If you're gonna only be in one negotiation, that's the one you should be in on.
Well, it's just a bigger magnitude, but I think it
It's a
makes
much
sense to be
bigger
involved in
number.
both. You know, as a budget representative, the town manager sits on both sides of, she's one of the few jobs that straddles your world and our world.
Right. Right.
So I agree with that. I mean, is that a problem?
No. No.
Great solution.
Got one done. Good.
So we will include town manager.
That's superb.
And that
very
will be
much.
though until,
that makes
what
sense.
year is that? 2020?
I mean, just for last year, so it's 2 more years from now.
So not, it will be the winter of next year. Next year. Next year.
But they start
just-
early, I remember.
Yeah,
20, the
yeah.
very, once we, 2020.
So 15 months from now.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, and you guys do it any way you want, but basically that's an annual budgeting decision that
Yes.
we have with the town manager is labor cost.
Right.
Whether we're up for a particular contract or not, we have a labor cost discussion every year that we do the budget. And then you look at 1 year, 3 years, 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm sure you do similar work, so. Great. Hey, that was good.
Oh, we talked about schools.
I think we already talked about the next one in
Yeah.
a way,
Yeah,
unless you want to
yeah.
add something to it.
No, we don't need to, does anybody need to?
Because I did go back and look at the old projections, and I saw that none of them panned out.
Yeah.
Really not everything you can do ahead of time.
Not those that were done
No.
as part of the
As part of
MSBA process,
The process.
Oh, they were terrible.
not done by NESDEC, that was
Yeah.
something that we paid for, and I could do that again at a cost of $1,000 to get numbers that have no
That don't work.
guarantee.
Yeah, right.
I don't think that that's the best way to spend $1,000.
But there's probably some data sources that we could help throw in the
Right.
mix. I'm not sure it's going to make it any better.
Maybe a little bit of that, they could be though.
I think the
Census
fact that
numbers,
the town is growing,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And there's a shifting population in
Right.
terms of home ownership
Right.
Exactly.
versus temporary.
Even the brand-new middle high school is going to make people want to live here.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, my guess is that
It's a draw.
Yes.
Absolutely.
My guess is that the high school moved the needle from exporter to importer to some extent.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
I'm sure.
and that affects the financial model in
Yes.
several places.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We did a good job, I guess.
Now, the next one I wanted, it's the role of liaisons. And what I think if we went around this table right now and said, what do you think a liaison is, we'd probably get 10 different definitions.
I think you're probably right.
And we could spend a lot of time on that, and I'm not sure if it'll be productive time. What should be the relationship? And we're struggling with this with all the boards, but what should be the relationship between your board and our board? And how do we best communicate, advocate, have somebody you can call if you want some help? Can I just kind of throw that out?
Right. What are your thoughts?
There have been occasion on meetings that we've had that we would.
We actually- that's what I
Can you
said.
mention that at the
Yeah.
next? But beyond that, there wasn't anything formally.
Not, we'd ask her questions.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Yeah.
But she reports back to the selectmen. We don't actually have a liaison that goes to the selectmen's meetings ourselves.
Then the question becomes.
You watch them, I know.
After the fact.
Yes.
I don't have time to
But
be
the
here all
question is,
the
do
time.
we want to?
Right.
We have
And what does liaison
liaison.
mean to us?
Right. Because in some capacities, when we go to other subcommittee meetings, we come and report back to the school committee at meetings. You know, part of our agenda is our subcommittee updates. But do we have, are we ever asked, when I go to a subcommittee meeting, some of them I've been asked to give an update what's going on in the school committee, and some of them I'm there to bring it back. So the
Right.
question is, what are our roles at each individual place? And is it defined by who I'm serving? If I'm serving the wellness advisory, what are they looking for from me? Versus, you know, if we're going to serve the Board of Selectmen and have a liaison, what are you looking for from us? So is it up to each individual entity to define?
So does that pose the question, do we want Phyllis as our liaison to give us a selectman update when she's present at our meetings?
Well, that's assuming you want a liaison.
Yeah, right, if we want a liaison,
see,
it's like, that's like.
You know, I'm thinking
that's
about the
like
different places where we
partnership.
have them, you know.
Yeah,
There are some committees that are not on TV,
right, correct.
and they actually prefer to come to us and tell us what their goals are, what they're doing, because they're not really telling us. They're trying to tell the town and get the, you guys don't have that need.
No, true.
But maybe there's a productive reason that we know what your goals are.
Right.
You know, maybe we have a kickoff meeting or a wrap-up meeting or together. I don't know.
A quarterly meeting.
I don't know. I don't know how often we'd need to do it, but I mean,
I'm looking at you, because you have so many meetings.
I don't think any of us want.
that's, you know,
How many sign-ups are
Right.
Yeah, it's, I mean, to me, you have the town manager and superintendent who are both, you know, heavily involved in running the show for each side, and I assume you two talk to one another in some degree. So, I mean, so to what extent does, I mean, you obviously have a ongoing conversation, to what extent do the boards need to add to it, or how can we add a good back and forth?
So I had talked about this at one of our meetings. Heather, I love when she does the town manager report, because it's like a synopsis of like what's gone on, a paving project, a special event. And I was thinking if there was a way, instead of attending each other's meetings, because even quarterly would come around real fast and be a huge strain, to have a set time, maybe quarterly, where we submit a synopsis to each other that could be read at a meeting, like the town manager's report. So you could, and then we would submit it together, and then you remove that, who's relaying what, and is it what wanted to be relayed, and we say we will compile a little paragraph here, and then it can be read as like, and we had talked about, I had mentioned we could receive one from the school committee, and really anybody we're seeking information from, the open space committee, and just as Heather reads, maybe the chair could read quarterly, these are our committee update reports, and everybody submits 5 to 10 sentence, you know, put a limit on it, so it's just a little synopsis, like a blurb, and then if somebody loves school committee meetings and they come to them and watch them, they get a little bit of input about everything. Likewise, if somebody's completely dedicated to tuning into the YouTubes of the selectmen, they'll get a little school committee blurb, and it might trigger an interest, like, oh, their budget hearing, or and that you're just putting information into the space without anybody's time.
But that is time. You know, all of the committees have minutes. If you want updates on what the committees are doing, you can read their minutes. Asking boards and committees to do one more thing so you don't have to go to a meeting is disrespectful.
It's in lieu of having a liaison, so it's a lot less time than asking people to go to other meetings. It's just to create the information as like a summary.
But those boards aren't liaisons to our committee. They don't send anybody to our committee.
It's just an idea. It's okay.
It could be just ours.
Yeah, we don't have to do, we have to have a discussion about what we want to do with the committees we appoint. But we're having a discussion about how can we help each other.
But I would be
Once we've had our meeting.
Excuse me?
Before we do the minutes, once we've had our meeting and they've been approved.
But the minutes are been posted. People can read them whenever they want.
I just love when Heather reads the town manager, because it's a verbal, fast summary.
We have a superintendent's report. She does the same thing.
No, I'm just talking about crossing over the information as a solution.
Maybe we just share.
If you want to
Okay,
try
how about for starters,
We try that.
you share your superintendent's report with us and you share your town manager report with them?
And we could.
Does that make any sense?
Packet or something like that?
Yeah, you just share it with the
And
other
then,
team.
And we could-
then as the chair, you decide where you want to put it on your
Yes.
agenda, or how often. We do it every meeting, so
Right.
you could put it on your agenda once a quarter or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
How's that sound?
I think
I
that's a
think
good idea.
that's a good idea, because
Fair.
that gets
And from that, if we have a curiosity and we want to do a deeper dive, we'll request it, or you'll request it.
Right.
Because one thing I want to be real clear, more to the town than to us. We don't work for you, you don't work for us. We're both elected by the citizens. But
We work-
such a big, the two of us as groups, as multiple member bodies, are the biggest chunk of employees and costs and everything else. So it's important that I think we're going in the same direction.
Yes.
Like, does anybody disagree with what I just
I
said?
can't disagree with that, yeah.
Yeah.
One thing my report may not capture, because it's done weekly, it's a broader view. It's going to capture what's happened within that week, ongoing projects, because it's weekly updates.
Well, I didn't tell you, I was going to take the weeklies and try to make a monthly out of it, and I'll work with you, I'll do the work, but I'll ask you
We could do
to,
yours and
yeah.
put it in a lump, like a monthly one.
Sure.
Okay.
We could do the same.
Because that could be our
Because my
our
updates aren't
televised
gonna
one, too.
capture the work that the committee's doing.
Right.
Right?
That's what I saw
My
that more-
updates are
Yeah.
more keeping you
going on
current
at
with
school.
what's
What's
going on.
at the school, the day-to-day school stuff, not us, is what hers does.
Yeah, I saw the exchange more as a what do we want to say to you and what do you want to say to us, like
Right.
what's up and coming, like a,
For you
like
guys to know.
a,
Which
like
would
a
maybe be more of the
sharing.
work that we're doing.
Right.
And almost shorter than the town manager report. Like, I mean, instead of all those items,
So we can tell you
just
like
the
what was on our-
paragraph.
what we did on our, like what policies we just reviewed and approved and things like that. Is that what you guys would like from us? Or do you want the day-to-days of what's going on at the school level? Because that's superintendent.
Why don't we leave it up to you to decide what you want us to know?
Okay.
And then you can.
And we'll do the same. And we'll do the same, and then after we see one, we'll say, you know, this is going to be helpful if we had some.
We had the.
Things that you may think are relevant
Relevant to you
to the
guys,
town,
Okay.
Right.
To me, that would probably be a highlight of our entire meeting, of one entire meeting, highlights.
Yeah.
A few sentences
In a
from your
few sentences,
superintendent report.
just a couple
It's our new
sentences.
business, it's our old business, and it doesn't have to be necessarily in-depth, but, you know, our
These are
new
the
business
highlights.
items,
Got it.
we discussed this, new business, old business.
Right.
And on the
We don't always
agenda,
have policies
Coming
on
up later.
Right.
Even just like the award tonight. I think it would be fun at a selectmen's meeting to have that read as the update from the school. Well, we're really pleased to announce that Ms. Walsh received, and just so, so these little fun more as a social communicating goal than the burden of the data that you can dig up. But the more fun communicating, it would be great for her to have that moment read just as a couple sentences
Again, yeah.
as news.
Well, another thing.
Headlines.
That could be helpful for some of the highlights. I'm using the superintendent's update once a month, at the end or the very beginning of a month, to kind of reflect back on what were the highlights of the month that just closed out in various departments or school buildings, and what's coming up in the month ahead that everybody might want to know about, right? So I'm calling it highlights and spotlights. So even sharing that once a month would really give you a couple of snippets.
Good synopsis.
Not school, school committee business per se,
business.
but, you know, things that are going on in the schools.
And for people that feel we're disconnected, hearing a little bit, if they're just watching our meeting, it'll help pique interest or feel that we're connected if we're sharing just the littlest pieces of information.
Is there anything that would preclude us from having that sent to the townwide DL on the emails instead of the parents of the schools?
No.
So that it would be another avenue of getting the information out there to the community at large as well.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Be great for
And if we're
everybody.
gonna do it anyway, we could probably post it on the website or the Facebook page or something too.
The synopsis.
Yeah, I mean ours.
Yeah.
You post that on the school website too, right?
It's on
I know,
the
read the work,
department
but if you're
website
doing
and
it,
it gets pushed
we'll
out
put it
to all
somewhere.
staff.
Yeah, as long as you're doing it.
So I don't know, maybe include
The link.
the townwide distribution list.
That's just town employees, isn't it?
I think anybody.
You can sign up
anybody
to
sign up for the
receive.
townwide email.
Learn something
Or,
new.
well, and we've got the Facebook page too, right?
And
So
we've got our
We've got-
television show that's
we've got the
starting up.
And when is the
Show's
television
coming
show
up.
start?
Well, we had some technical difficulties. We taped the 29th, I think, maybe, of
Last week?
October?
It was last
Monday?
Monday.
Last Monday?
Last Monday.
Yes, last Monday.
I only know
It was
that because
really only
cable
just
access
last
coordinator.
Just feels like a long time ago. We had some technical difficulties, and in the final cut, the audio is not the best, so we're looking to find a time to retape.
Retape.
But the show is on the Interface referral service that's available to all of the town. So we thought that that would be a really good one to start with.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll be redoing it soon.
And where will we be able to view it?
So you'll be able to view it through Access TV, but we are also going to post the link to the video on the district website for convenience.
Are you going to tweet it out too?
I can.
You can tweet the link, right?
I can.
There you go. Do you guys have Twitter handles or what? What's going on?
Well, come on now, you gotta get on board with Twitter.
Well, you don't
You've got to
have
follow our
Twitter. All you-
AD.
you can
He's
even
phenomenal
use
about
SMS.
tweeting out all
That's
the
true, yeah.
You can have it delivered to your
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah.
Just by doing what, 4044?
Yeah, you could, yeah.
Yeah, you can get the tweets too.
4044, something like that.
Yeah.
Follow?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. We're working to hook the Twitter into the Facebook so that things you put on Twitter will just...
Okay, so our next topic, joint planning opportunities. We're on to joint planning opportunities, events like homecoming. Now, I was a little bit upset not to see any of the selectmen in the homecoming parade, and then I found out they weren't actually invited.
I'll talk to the parade.
We never have been. That traditionally, we've never been invited.
Well, would you like to see a change in tradition?
Sure. Yeah, obviously. I
You know, I have to say, that was the first time I actually attended one. I did not know that.
But seriously, I think
In one of those parades, no.
I think that because tradition's tradition, the school has always run that.
Yeah.
I don't know why, the school runs the Christmas tree lighting, but I get
don't know why
invited to
that
go
is
speak
either.
to
A
that.
holiday tree.
Not me.
I know,
Not me.
We're gonna have to like.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I'll
I'm
light
just
I'll light
telling you.
anything you need lit, but
Christmas tree
the one I'm,
lighting,
it's
I
Christmas.
know, we run the honor society students, right? It's- Or
And that's
student
fine.
government.
But here's,
Student government, student government.
I think this is I just think there's opportunities
Oh, I agree.
for us not to do these in the stovepipe. One of the things, and this is my own pet peeve, again, I'm going to refer back to Pepperell. I don't think Pepperell's can hold a candle to Lunenburg, but that's
I don't
where,
know, it sounds like
that's
you
where my
do.
kids grew up. But we always talk about green space. I look around Lunenburg, there's a lot of green space. But it's stovepiped. The school owns this green space, the parks owns this green space, the town owns this green space. In Pepperell, the town gazebo happens to sit in center field of the baseball
Right.
on the school property. But that's where the concerts are, that's where the fireworks are, that's it. And it's just because was their tradition. And we have kind of done things by who owns the property or who runs the event or whatever. And I put this bullet on here with the support of my board, our board, just to say, hey, there's a lot of opportunity if we just want to grab it.
There
You know,
is.
to do
I just heard
things.
fireworks came out of your mouth.
Yeah, we had a town fireworks thing. It was a fundraiser, they did pie sales and stuff to get the money up, but they had a big fireworks thing at the town field.
Lunenburg used to do fireworks.
And we did them for the 275th. That was the last time they've been in Lunenburg.
Excuse me?
Was, Lunenburg's 275th, which was somewhere 2003 was the last time we had them here on larger scale. I did, I was, yeah.
And again, I don't think any one of
remember
us,
them since then.
I don't think any of us wants to commit, to create a new committee or anything like that, but
A fireworks committee.
Oh, well, maybe we do, maybe we do. But I'm just saying, when we're doing.
We will need a liaison to that, though.
One more meeting,
Where to go
please.
see fireworks.
In Wilmington?
I don't want to go to Pepperell again to see fireworks.
Truly, what we do need, though, is a 300th birthday committee, and that's when we'll do our fireworks, 2028, 2028, 300.
Wilmington has, which was originally a one-room schoolhouse, one of their original, is now dedicated to the it's the 4th of July building. Because the 4th of July is such a huge event.
And what do they do the rest of the year with that building?
They meet in there and they plan.
The Brooks House,
Yeah.
4th of July building.
Yeah. Right
Time to
here.
use.
This building.
Yeah.
The 4th of July building.
We need a Christmas tree lighting building.
It's like a plan to me.
We can use up all
We
these.
just got
Still a lot of
so much
fireworks in
done.
here.
Right? Fireworks done. Yeah, so can we, homecoming, that's a great opportunity for people to interact with the selectmen. There's so many parents there.
Yeah.
I was there.
That was my first, but
It was like my 100th.
I just think it's a great opportunity for them to interact with the parents. Yeah. Because parents aren't coming to the selectmen meetings that much.
Not unless it's a problem.
They're not coming to school committee meetings either, so.
Unless it's a problem.
Yeah. So it'd just be nice to see them there.
Maybe we could build a float.
We try to go to anything we're invited to, at least one of us.
Right.
Because that's part of our job.
Right.
You know, but we need to know where it is and what you want us to do. Do you want us to just be there? Do you want us to say something? You know, and the same thing, I think we should give thought to how do we include the school community? Because they don't have to be two separate communities.
No, they're the same community.
Right.
You know, not that we need to be introduced or anything, but at graduation, we go to graduation, we sit there, and no one introduces us or anything, so how would people even know that?
You're just in the front row, you have front row seat, that's all you got.
Yeah, right.
You got prime.
But, yeah, it was glamorous, yes.
But I agree.
It's the same for the remainder of the school committee.
It is
The
because-
chair is,
Yeah, right,
chair is
exactly.
on.
The same
I
thing.
don't think that I should be the only one sitting up there. I think that we all work the same amount on school committee. I would think that more than me should be up there shaking hands.
graduation?
Yeah.
Different stage.
New beginnings. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm not the only one that does work for our students. I am not. So I don't agree with that either.
We have a new principal this
Right.
year, and
Yeah.
So also, I love this idea in terms of, because there is compartmentalization within town sometimes, I think. If you have kids in school, it sort of lives in one world, and if you don't,
You're
it's
in
another. So
another.
from a budget perspective, it feels like, because the school budget is the major chunk of our town budget, it feels like an us versus them sometimes. So perhaps if we begin to have a different relationship with each other and how we interact and how we invite each other and include each other, then the town will begin to view everything we do as more
Collaborative.
cohesive, collaborative.
I agree.
Okay.
Let me just tell you, that doesn't mean I want to sit on stage at any of your town meetings. Any of that stuff, okay?
Saturdays for 8 hours?
No, I'll go to meetings, but I don't sit at-
We just had another table brought in for
I
Tuesday
don't-
night.
Yeah. And I honestly, we should all be present at town meetings. Except for when there's a powder puff game. The same kind of special town meeting.
November 13th at 7 PM.
They're the same.
We should do a better effort to not have
And
anything
that's the thing,
overlap
we
with a
should-
town
we
meeting.
should. Even
That's
today,
scary.
The LHS thing, none of us could go.
Right.
It was the same time as our meeting.
So there's an honor society event and
The
then you
induction for
can't
the
be
new.
there.
Yep.
You know, it would be nice if even the schools thought of us.
Last year. Last year they ended up moving it because I said something, there is a thought. I had a student being inducted and I said something before the date went out, but there isn't, but again, that's the lack of cross between things. Our schools aren't looking at what are our town meetings going on? Are we putting things on? Even parade day for Little League years ago, when it would be, when everything was put on town meeting day. And, Carrie Spidel said, hey, can we look at this differently? Because it doesn't support people being at town meeting.
Yeah, right.
If they're supposed to be in 6 other places at once. Because we do want as many people involved in the process as can be.
And then like we talked about should school emails go out to the general town and then I don't know if it does already, I'll have to check my email, but a superintendent's email as one of those highlighted items when you send out an email, don't forget it's town meeting Tuesday night. And then just having the little pieces of information crossover.
Sure. Is the town meeting up on the
Yes, it's in the school after all, right?
Was it on the board? I think she wanted to know if it was on.
Yes.
Yes.
The electronic sign. Yes.
And it's also up, I have not looked as I've driven by, it's also on the Ritter Building?
Yes,
Okay.
on that.
I just haven't looked yet.
That everybody looks at.
I was just gonna say, when you stop at the stoplight, you're looking.
It's easier to see that than the electronic one.
Any other ideas for collaboration and joint planning opportunities? Homecoming, town meetings.
Well, I think might be interesting to see some of the other organizations on how, like the Lions Club, the Boys and Girls Club, those folks that are out there doing work and setting up events.
Like Stillman's Fair.
Stillman's Fair, the Fun Run, whatever is out there, to see how those dates also work with town events. And maybe request them.
We tend to take a table at all those kind of events for the sole purpose of recruiting volunteers.
Right.
But, one of us sits at that table very lonely all day long. We could do a lot of things at that table. If you ever had a reason to want to see the town or hand something out or interact or whatever, we could jointly do that easy. I'm not saying you want to do that, but we could.
And so I'm thinking, are there opportunities for those outside organizations to get on the town calendar that these things are happening? And I don't know if that makes sense to reach out to
And
them.
even our calendar at
Or-
school,
or the school calendar,
we
yeah.
have the calendar, it would be good to have those events on there.
And how do we merge those two?
Yeah.
Because that Google
yeah.
calendar would sync with my
Your phone?
phone, and I'd know what's going on.
Yeah, the only
in town.
challenge is on the website, the Google Calendar is, it's tricky, pretty small.
It's tiny screen, and it's pretty small.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can only really see like 3 items before, then you have to click.
But we have it tabbed by individual school and by district. And do you have it a tab? For town, because I'm not sure we could have everything together without confusing people.
Yeah, right.
So,
Right.
So do you just have one more tab that allows people to see that? Because what you see when you look around the community is people not knowing where to look for information sometimes. So again, the more places we can put things that are clear and concise, the better informed citizens will be.
And
The
I
tricky
know that
thing
we've
about
got the
adding-
calendar on the town website, but sometimes things aren't there until an agenda is received.
Yeah.
Like,
So it's last minute.
so it's kind of last minute that it's added, or 48 hours. And I don't know if there's a possibility of integrating that with school paid, I don't know. But that's-
Or just
that's
focusing
something
on those
for the technology
larger
guys, yeah.
town meeting type events.
Right.
Yeah, our calendar does have filters where it's community, family-friendly events, festivals and fairs. We haven't, with the new website, we haven't really utilized that part. We're just, we're getting used to the whole posting agendas and other town meetings and such, but there is that capability. We just have to see if we can integrate school and who's gonna be putting those up and the whole logistical piece.
Okay.
Clerical piece.
And if there's too much information, it can be confusing.
Oh, yeah.
Right, it's,
Yes.
But I have heard that expressed, that people want one place
To
to
go
go
and
to see
find
what's going on in
everything.
town. So
Yeah.
it would be nice to have.
I was gonna see if the ledger was still here, because maybe there's an opportunity to do a community calendar in the ledger that includes town and school and everybody else. They submit their calendar to the paper and have them do it a month in advance.
That'd be a nice way
I
to
don't
see it.
Yeah,
And you could put it on your fridge with a magnet.
exactly. Options. That's what we need.
I think we got through the list.
We did pretty well.
And I feel good about it. I hope everybody else does.
Okay.
Want
so
to do
what
it
are our
again someday?
follow-up? What
Yeah,
are,
we can.
so what are our follow-up points?
Okay.
I had one, like as far as an action item for the second one, the conceptual plan.
Yeah.
If, we can provide those conceptual plans to the school committee for you to review at one of your future meetings and provide us input on your needs for those, which scenario do you feel works the best for your needs and space available.
Okay.
And how, what would be helpful for, I think, I'm speaking for the board, but logistically working with the public side, and if there's going to be classrooms for the pre-K and early childhood classrooms,
The requirements.
Right, the requirements.
For a school setting as opposed
Right.
to the town setting.
Mhm.
Okay,
And what would make you all feel comfortable with that, too.
okay. So we checked off a bunch though.
I think the second to last one, the liaison one, we agreed to at least start with the
Yep, with
report, the
reports.
trading of
Yep.
reports.
So we
And you want to
do
take a
that in
target,
December?
want to take a target for December on that?
Yep, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And then a check-in in, say, March or April to see how
Great.
we're feeling about that format?
Okay, but we can't have a meeting around that time. That just won't work.
No, I didn't say meeting.
no, she didn't say me.
No, just a check-in. If
Okay,
we've done 3 months of that format, do we like it?
And then we could put that in our report we send to each other. I don't like this.
Yeah. Goodbye. So do we want
We're
to
done.
target March for a check-in on, that would give us a few months worth?
We can do that at the caucus. There will be a caucus that.
It is, I'm Vanna White now. at
We need to make
caucus.
sure that
I
makes
got
it to
a
the
job.
calendar.
I am, I committed last year.
Yeah, the caucus needs
I
to
took
be on the
Janice
calendar.
Carrier's job.
Did you?
I
Good
did.
for you.
Now I can't forget that I have to be. I did, much needed.
That needs to go on the calendar.
Yes, the calendar, the caucus calendar.
My own calendar.
I think we felt comfortable with the union representation
Yep.
one, so we
Yep.
could say that's a
Yep,
done deal.
that'll work.
So I think those are our only two,
Yeah, that was it.
our only two
So,
action items.
And we already have the tree lighting under wraps, right, for this year? So we don't have to do that for.
Well, I'm still waiting for the actual, this year's thing. You know, your agenda, the time, what do you want me to do? I got last year's, but are you gonna do another one for this year?
I will.
Okay, good. Because I do whatever I'm told, you know, pick up Sander, and then I do this, and then I do the band, and then I,
And that's the 29th of November.
correct,
6 o'clock. Yes.
correct.
Okay, so Meredith, just one other thing. When is the PTO Barnes and Noble's book?
November
That's been moved. It's now December 6th.
Oh, it was moved?
It's a Thursday night.
It's
December 6th.
December 6th. Okay.
I believe it's December 6th.
December 6th is a Thursday.
Yes.
Did you guys do any Christmas shopping? Barnes and Noble? It's a fundraiser for the PTO.
Perhaps the
Get all those
PTO
for
might
my
want to reach out to our board of
kids' schools.
selectmen.
Want to read, because that's what they have readers, teachers who come read.
Sure, I'll do it.
They have community members who
Yeah.
might be a good chance to
Yeah.
tell kids what you do in the community. I mean, obviously, maybe our littlest folks wouldn't get it, but certainly some of the older ones who can.
We could do a shadow day. They could come spend time and shadow some people at town hall.
Oh, the older students.
Semi-older students.
In my high school, or
We
they
have
want to see if they're
We have a high
interested in
school, we have
public service.
Yeah.
Mrs. Foyle runs a community
No,
service.
we need more people involved in public
I know.
service.
I wonder if there could be a shadowing involved with that, 'cause there's our AP government class obviously does a lot with that as well. I'm wondering, is that something, if it was put out to them as an opportunity, if they wanted to help educate their students on more on local government? Yes?
Yes.
They would reach out to the two of you then? Yes.
So I've checked my calendar. It is December 6th.
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, 4 to 7.
I thought it was coming up soon.
And they,
That is soon.
I know, but
I'm kidding.
It was next week. It was next week.
They want to get it the same night? Okay, that's good.
Okay.
and we believe that they're also doing Applebee's.
Oh, that same night for their.
Which is so smart.
So
Yeah.
that you
Smart.
go to eat at Applebee's.
You get 5% goes back to
Yeah,
the
but
It's smart,
they
right?
really want you to have that flyer with
But you have to have
you,
the
and
card.
you can't pass, PTO cannot pass out the flyers in their parking lot.
Right.
So if you forget
So
your
swing
flyers,
by
so
Barnes and Noble
Noble's in their
first.
flyer.
Oh, Barnes and Noble will have the flyers? Okay.
Yeah, they'll be able to have flyers at Barnes and Noble's.
For Applebee's.
For Applebee's.
Okay, but you
For
can't, you
Applebee's.
can't pass out the Barnes and Noble stuff at Barnes and Noble.
Well, Barnes and Noble, you don't need anything.
No, you don't need anything. It's everything anybody buys there. They don't even have to say.
Different
Oh, they
places
don't anymore?
different
Okay.
places that do that kind
They
of
used
spirit
to.
night. Some are real particular about you have to have a physical flyer in your
Yes,
hand.
some are, yeah.
Some are just, oh, I'm with Lunenburg, and I'm like, okay, we'll write that down.
But they've got to say it.
Applebee's is like with the flyer, actual flyer in hand.
The only other thing I can think that we might want to do, and I don't know when that would have to be, the Turkey Hill, is maybe that you want to take a tour of Turkey Hill, to see what it looks like. When there are no students there, just to take a look at what's going on there and all the work
Like
that Mr. Londa's done. You know what I mean? Just so that you know where the asbestos abatement's been going on, all the work that Mr.
That'd be great.
Londa's been doing.
That's a great idea.
I'd love
See
that.
the visual impact of areas that are done versus not done.
Right, and also just to see what it looks like inside and what we're thinking.
Right, right.
What you guys might be thinking after you go and look at it.
When he was talking, I wrote that down. Go see TCP.
Oh, there you go. See now.
Turkey Hill.
Yeah,
THES.
Initials, alphabets.
Yes.
That's right.
That's a
Which
great
one?
suggestion.
So next week is an early release for parent
right,
conferences
That's
on the 13th.
Unless the parents had conferences.
13th is town meeting.
oh, yeah. That's a lot in a day.
I've got 4 conferences and a town meeting. It's like getting concert tickets when you gotta book 4.
I know, I remember I had 3. I'm like, and it's harder at high school.
And you don't know if you wanna tell your friends, like, hey, you gotta go book them, or you wanna like,
See what's first and then let them
Until
know.
after you're done.
right?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what day would work for that, but it would be really good for you guys to get a visual of the school.
Maybe another early release.
See what's changed since I went to school
December
there.
Oh, yeah, right?
November 21st.
That's Turkey.
I actually got it. I'm doing that Bridges program.
It is Turkey Hill.
So I actually got a tour, but the kids say, that's a classroom, that's a classroom, that's a classroom. You know?
The graders, come on. Yeah.
The 5th graders.
Yeah. That's a cool program though.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, very nice.
So, okay, so we'll figure that out. Right. Okay.
Well, I want to thank you guys. I really think
No,
this,
thank you.
I feel
Thank you.
it's
This was
productive.
good.
Hopefully, the rest of the board does. Yep.
No, I really do.
Well, thank you for coming to our meeting and working with us.
Motion to adjourn at 9:03 PM.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Second?
All those in favor? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.